Toxic relationships mean that it usually is a maturity issue, because if you're a true adult, and that's really after the age of about 24 is
Gotcha.
when you're considered a true bona fide adult at 24 years old.
Okay.
Brain is completely online. Everything is, yeah. So if you're in a toxic relationship, it usually means that the easiest way for me to explain it is you're with an immature person.
Mm-hmm.
And so an immaturity like defines a whole myriad of problems. So I remind people, when little children are acting out, when we have the terrible twos, right? And if we have teenagers and preteens, we can tolerate them because we know they're finding their way.
Right.
We're not expecting them to be full-blown adults.
That is so
Well, what
true.
happened in our society now is parents are wanting to be best friends with their kids, and they're changing the way they are as full-blown adults, so they're not really showing kids what adults are supposed to look like. We don't have, so a lot of my practice is adulting people, right?
Mm.
So I'm helping, and I tell them, I say, the most fun life you can have is as an adult.
Yes,
The world doesn't hurt that bad when you're an adult,
that is so true.
because you have options and you have ways to help put yourself back together, and you have, lots more freedoms than children have. So the worst thing a person could do to themselves is to be a child in an adult body with adult responsibilities. And I say to people, this is what you're doing, and you do know that if we could really see it, it'd be child abuse. That's what you're doing to the inner child part of you. You're wanting that little
Yes.
kid that's going back to God, that little kid that has so much, love and creativity and energy. You're asking that little kid, that part of you, to be the adult, and you have, abdicated. So this is where we get these terrible, horrible feelings of we're not adequate, we're not good enough, we're not pretty enough. And so we want to change all kinds of the design that God had made, hoping, chasing a dream, chasing a feeling, instead of saying, wait, if I'm beautifully and wonderfully made and I don't get it, which I have had many times in my life, I did not get that verse. I
Gotcha.
believed it because God said it, but I didn't feel it at all. Okay.
Gotcha. Yep.
So, it's if we let people grow up and encourage them to grow up, and it's like if there were no lane lines on the highways,
Mm-hmm.
there were no stoplights, okay, it would be a mess. It's a mass confusion. So I say to people, if every single adult just contained themselves and managed and parent their own inner child, we'd be in heaven.
We would, I mean,
See,
literally, right?
yes, because see, adults can like weigh and measure what's super important, what's not that important, even if it's irritating, annoying, and frustrating. Like if
True.
a car cuts me off, okay, that's irritating, annoying, and frustrating. It's impolite. It gives me a yucky feeling, and I just can continue to drive and get to my next thing, and I'm fine.
Right.
If I'm a little kid or a teenager, okay, we're going down.
Yes, I'm
Because
after
I
you.
like that feeling, and you gave me this feeling, and you are going to
Mm-hmm.
give me that feeling, and the world stops at that moment. And instead of an adult saying, "Gosh, that was gross. Gosh, that I didn't deserve that. They must be having a really bad day."
Mm-hmm.
Forward and have a good day.
Right.
Instead of, I remind people, I say, some of my clients, I say, you are like a walking piece of Velcro. You snag
Mm.
on everything.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm just like, smooth it down. Come on,
Right.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
Is this what we're really, it's like the cry over, argue over, die over. Am I gonna
Mm-hmm.
die on this one?
Right.
Or am I just going to like, whatever, I'm gonna move on and I can reset
Mm-hmm.
myself and, know that it was.
Mm-hmm. Right. And move on. Thank you
Mhm.
so much. So another important question I've got for you and want you to kind of dissect here is
Okay.
when it comes to conflict, if you could talk about the different ways, the different incorrect ways actually that people handle conflict compared to healthy ways of handling conflict.
Well, I think the most effective tool that I have used is the when you I feel. So
Mm.
if I say, when you talk to me in that tone of voice,
Mm-hmm.
feel disrespected, I want to give you the benefit of the doubt. Maybe you're in a bad mood. But when you do that, I
Mm-hmm.
end up feeling like this. I'm not saying that you have to fix my feeling. I'm an adult. I'm responsible for my own feelings. I'm just letting you know because I want our relationship to be safe, to be close, to be enjoyable.
Right.
So I would like to help you with that if I can. If I can't,
Mm-hmm.
you know, okay, let's just kind of take a time out and go reset ourselves and get our priorities back in order and get back to the plumb line.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of just being like that, you know, feather in the wind that just goes wherever it takes me. This is
I love your visual, like with the feather in the wind and the Velcro.
yes.
Yes, but you're right though, because things can get out of control really
Yes.
fast.
And see, we've missed in elementary school, when I was in elementary school, they really understood little kids.
Mm-hmm.
They did not have expectations of children that were inappropriate.
Right. That is
And
so
so,
true.
so what happens is as adults, if we haven't grown up, then the
Mm-hmm.
expectations that adults have, we think are mean and harsh and bad, and someone should come help me.
That is true. And that's because there was no one to really like go, what you just said was like not okay. I'm not sure if you're having a bad day, but
Right,
like you just said, maybe we need to take a time out,
right,
maybe we can pray about it. But
right.
I found that to be
Yeah.
very disrespectful.
You see, it goes back to in America, we somehow switched, and this happened a lot in right before 2000.
Hmm.
Everybody thought that they had a right to feel good all the time.
Right.
And I say to people, first of all, if you want to feel good all the time, then be a stellar, wonderful human that contains themselves and is really able to adjust to people. So if
Right.
you want to feel good all the time, that's how you do it. You
Hmm.
have a good internal world that you live in, and you recognize the external world is really not your problem.
Hmm.
Your problem is how much am I going to let it affect me?
Right.
And
Hmm.
so we have this growing up issue, and I do a lot of adulting with my clients, and I
Hmm.
know you're here to be grown up because one of the saddest lies that we have heard from the enemy is being an adult is just hard work and it's no fun.
That is so true, isn't it?
And I'm telling you what, being an adult is really fun.
It is.
I
It
manage
is.
myself and manage my internal world no matter what the world out here does. My world inside can still be good.
That is so true,
I
because I had a
can
conversation with someone and we were talking, and it was a conversation around like, how someone said, well, how are you doing today? Right. And so
right.
it's several different answers that could be going on. And I say, for me, if I tell someone I'm doing okay, that does not mean I'm not going through trials and tribulations and
Right.
all of the above. And I might be dealing with a few triggers here and there. That doesn't mean any of those things. What that means is if I say I'm doing okay, whatever I'm going through, I am at a state where I can manage my
That's right. That's right.
emotional
That's
state. You know
right.
what I'm saying? Emotional,
Yes.
mental, spiritual, physical state. And I'm
Right.
able to keep all of that contained. That's what I mean about if I say I'm doing okay. Because some people say, well, it's not great. You don't want to be great. I'm doing okay. So
It's
if
like
I'm managing,
I say to people, yeah, I want to be great, but why do I think it's going to happen down here all the time? That's absurd.
that is true.
This
And
is
we're
a
not going to
very
always feel great.
right. It's a very difficult place to live, you know?
Right.
And so a lot of the problem is this idea that people feel they are entitled to feel good all the time. And so I say to people, if you want to feel good all the time, do the right thing.
Right.
Just do the right thing and apologize if you don't and forgive other people. And if the person you're forgiving continues to offend, get a new friend. The one
Right.
in place.
Right. Because a
Yes.
lot of times we endure
Yes.
different things as in toxic relationships, and we stay in it longer than we have to. But a lot of it is because, like you said, we've just not made the decision to move and do anything, you know,
you're hitting on the grief and loss process. Humans don't want to go through the grief and loss process. They just want it to be fixed. And some things on earth cannot be fixed.
There you
And
go.
that's why we need adults.
That is so true. You're right. Some things on earth just cannot be fixed. And like you said, we tend to, especially as women, I can fix this. I know I can fix him. I can change him. You know, I can build a man, like the build a bear. I can do all of that. You know, just make a few tweaks here and I can get my needs met and he'll be a better man. Right. And none of that is going to happen.
No, I tell clients all the time, women, I say, okay, listen, you wanted a man, you looked for a man,
right?
You hoped for a man, not a man, period.
Right.
This is what men do, okay?
Right.
You are not going to change a man. In fact, the whole point of that is based in the heart of Christ. If Christ could have been moved, he would not have hung on the cross.
Right.
His mother didn't want him to do it.
Exactly.
And he did it.
And he did it. Yep.
That's right. And so men, they need to be good men. And I work with men a lot. I like working with them. And once they get on that track of understanding themselves and how to be a really good man, they are very happy people, right? Because they're not trying to get, they're not confusing power, right? With somehow entitlement. Yeah. And if I have power, then I'm going to feel relaxed. And I'm like, that's not how it works.
It sure isn't, is it?
I don't know, and not at all. Like you have power because you can move things that women can't move. Right. And women, we have this incredible ability for long suffering.
We sure do.
And that's good for men.
It sure is, because it goes to, it's at our own expense, unfortunately, right?
That's right. But see, that's why we are such a stabilizer if we will be one. Right. Because we stabilize the little, community that we are in. We help to stabilize it so that people are safe. And that causes men to then go out and do things like, I don't want to have to like think in the old times and, when they lived out in ranches and cat had too many kittens. Well, and they had no money to save the kittens and they didn't want the kittens to be eaten. So the dad went and killed all the kittens. It's horrible. It's horrible.
Oh my word.
I can't do it. And I would have a house of cats probably. Wow. And so, you have to remember that men can do things not because they like it and they're not supposed to like it.
That is true.
That we would kind of, we would try to rearrange it. We try to find any other way than that way. Right. Instead of just saying, I have tried every way. And so I guess the way is I break the relationship. I guess the way is I kick my son out. Yep. Right? Yeah. I guess the way is I say to my daughter, you will never go outside of this house looking like that. And I don't want to see it in the house either. Right. This is for being. This is not because it's a buzzkill. Okay. Right. That's not what we're doing. Right. We're saying you walk out of the house looking like that. You don't understand the messages that you're sending and the that will come your way that I don't want you to have. Exactly. So I'm not trying to kill your creativity. Right. I'm living with the multicolored hair. Right. Right. I remember my parents went out of their mind. I pierced my ears 4 times when I was like 21. We were doing multiple piercings, right? They sure were. Oh, my dad was like, it's fine. But he had to decide, what hill am I going to die on? Exactly. Is it going to be over ear piercings or something else that might be even worse than that? Right. Because his thing was he wanted me to get an education. That was the goal. And so they didn't let all these other distractions get in the way of making sure I made it through college. Yep. And that makes sense because when we stick to our values and we stick to the priorities in those values and our standards and principles, etc., then we have a better outcome rather than getting caught up in all those itty bitty distractions that Satan sends along the way. Well, see,
You know what I
because
mean?
yes, the world is tearing down all these constructs that made things work so well in our country.
I
So they
agree.
rearranged everything, and so it's
Mm-hmm.
like we don't even know how to drive our cars anymore sometimes because we don't have
Right.
roadways, and so it's this idea that, hey, if I can get my own system inside of me, think of how we have the triune, we have Father, Son, Holy Spirit, and they are
Mm-hmm.
friends, and they work in tandem with one another. Well, I remind myself and my clients, I have a triune as well, me,
Right.
myself, I.
It's true.
And if I am not good with myself, I've got a problem,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to come out sideways.
That is so true. Like you said, if we're not good with ourselves,
Mhm.
then we think we're going to be able to make it work in a relationship and get somebody else figured out and be able to communicate and relate to them. But it doesn't work that
Right.
way because we have to know ourselves enough to even
Right.
know what it is we need and want before trying to tend to somebody else's
Well,
needs.
see, that's where if my internal world is in disorder,
Mm-hmm.
then I'm going to try to change the external world so I feel better.
Right.
That's what toddlers and teens do.
That's true.
Hmm.
That is
They
so
want to
true.
change the environment to feel better.
Mm-hmm. And then as adults, when we do that, I call it a lack cycle of addiction, where we go through
Right.
love, approval, comfort,
Mhm.
and knowledge addictions. So we get on
Right.
that wheel, that hamster
Right.
wheel, and become disconnected from God, from ourselves, and from other people while we're on that wheel, putting
Mhm.
people, places, things, and ideas on that wheel,
Mhm.
thinking that we can get those addiction needs met, all of these
Right.
coping mechanisms going on, when the real thing is like looking inside, going
That's
back to,
right.
like you said, what do I need right now in this moment?
Well, it's
You
it's
know.
that old saying, everywhere I go, there I am.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So if I say to clients all the time, what if everybody just did themselves? If
Mm-hmm.
everyone just contained and managed themselves, what a world it would be.
I'm telling you, it would literally be, oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm just talking about, like I said, just a better society in
Yeah,
general, because we walk around trying to control other people, but we don't even have the self-control.
that's right.
We don't know what's going on with us. So I've got one last question before
Okay.
I get to the quick fun questions. Why do you think it's important for people, once they've decided, okay, once the woman has decided, have got the courage, I'm coming out of this toxic relationship, I'm ending it, right? Or either the male ends it, like, I'm done, I'm discarding you, blah, blah, blah. So
Mhm.
why do you think it's important for her to then go and heal herself and deal with herself before hopping into another relationship, and end up reinforcing the trauma bond that she has already? Why do you think that's
Yes.
important? Because it go back to, how we were talking about that external. I can just
Yes.
go get another man. Mm-hmm.
Yes, exactly. Well, I think it's first and foremost recognizing what part of you is attracted to a certain person.
Mm.
So it's like, wow, am I attracted to this man because he has a lot of money? Well,
Mm-hmm.
the reality is women's number one need is security.
Right.
So when I'm counseling men and they say, well, she just wants me to make more money, I said, of course she does.